Energetics of money. Today we're going to be talking about abundant mind. And thanks, Robin. I don't know what happened. The music was. If you came in a little bit later, you don't know because I changed it and I stopped the recording. But the music wasn't playing and the countdown was happening. And I didn't really change the setting, but second time it works. So I hope everybody started to understand that everything is about identity. Are we starting to get that? Everything is about identity. We're talking about money, but we're talking about identity. In the spiritual work, in to embody spirituality is an identity work. Embodying the spirituality is an identity work. And to understand what identity is and then how it's being shaped and how we can actually be the creator of that identity is the key for me. Who here believes or know that abundant life comes from the abundant mind? Yeah? Anybody? So, what is abundant mind? That's the topic of today. Abundant mind, you can kind of contemplate before I share my answer. Abundant mind is an identity. And what identity consists of is the thoughts that we think, the feeling that we feel, and the belief that we have. In understanding this process of spiritual realization and the awareness work that we're doing, what we want to begin practicing is to notice where we're thinking from, where we're feeling from, where we're believing from. When we don't pay attention to where we are thinking from, feeling from, believing from, inevitably, because the five senses and our internal familiarity, the external five sensory circumstance and situation, and an internal familiarity of who we feel we are so strong, we begin thinking, feeling, believing from either of those two places. Are we on the same page? Right? Because the five senses in the outside and the familiar feeling from the past present is so strong, if we don't pay attention to where we are thinking from, feeling from, believing from, automatically we are going to think from the existing circumstance. We're going to automatically feel from the past present experience, believing from what's familiar. But since we are aware species because we're doing this work and practicing, we can notice and recognize that pattern, and noticing is the first step to become aware of in order to shift and change anything. And because we understand the law of cause and effect, we understand that the creation in the physical world is what we are creating is not creating from out of nothing, but it's already been created. We want to practice thinking from our vision, feeling from our vision, believing from our vision, acting from our vision, making a decision from our vision, being, doing, having everything from our vision. Now, vision is the fulfillment of our desire. So that's the fundamental change that we must practice, right? Noticing where we're thinking from, feeling from, believing from, acting from, deciding from, and to interrupt the pattern of demonstrating all of those from the outside circumstance or past present version of us, right? And if we can really master this, we can actually create a change. Let's start with a little bit of ritual, everybody. I posted this Save the Day Alchemy party. We are going to have a party. August 31st, Sunday. Jan usually facilitate this alchemy call that is open to everybody in the group. And in order for me to share to as many people as I can, because we want to have people coming in, I decided to post this today, and I'm announcing this in the abundant mind section. Just take a look at this, and other people have already responded. If you're able to make it, please come. There will be a recording, but it's going to be different, right? Recording. This is not gonna be lesson stuff or teaching stuff or coaching stuff. It's gonna be a connection event, and we would love to know as many people as possible who are in the group. And this is a good place for everybody to get to know people who have been in the group, including not Soul Purpose, but Self-Realization, Soulpreneur. We have different, programs that we run that to be able to facilitate transformation, which I'm going to be talking more about that on day 5. Many people are already aware that that exists, but you can interact with people who are inside of the group. But if you are able to come, if you could just respond to this RSVP post, that'd be good. And I'm talking to anybody and everybody who is live and also people who are watching replay. This post is today's Abundant Mind post. And of course, Tom is already posting. So day 1, we share the gratitude. Day 2, I asked what the emotion that you would like to be in. So for today, just to kind of anchor this sort of internal inquiry before we begin, I'd like to kind of start with a little writing, right? If you could share one act that you would be doing if you are to be living an absolutely abundant life. This might take a little bit of time. We're going to spend a little bit of time, right? Because it's easy for us to begin fantasizing and visualizing what the abundant life look like, right? But the whole training this week from day 1 to day 5, we're going to be moving from understanding the concept and understanding how that's relate to our experience. But what needs to reflect these messages and the information is to begin infusing in our day-to-day activity, the action piece, right? So whatever the abundant life that you are envisioning, abundant life is an extension of the abundant mind. And whatever the abundant life that you are living, that you can kind of visualize and fantasize a little bit, that abundant life was created because of the abundant mind, not the other way around. People tend to misunderstand that somebody is having an abundant mind because they're experiencing an abundant life. But the core message that I have here is that it's the other way around. That means that Michael Jordan had that image of him and a feeling, an identity before he became a known superstar, not the other way around, right? So when we look at the world and when we see people accomplishing, when we see people having a certain impression, like Eckhart Tolle, right? He acquired the identity that integrates, I'm talking about Eckhart Tolle, integrate the essence of who he is, and then he expressed that message to the world, right? So the formation of the identity comes first. Formation of the idea of us that is abundant comes first in order to invite the external circumstance, because as we all know, the outside is a mirror effect of our inside. So we must address the cause first before we, oh, everybody's already typing. That's good. Before we see anything in the outside. Yes, Candy. serving on the charity board. So we want to form a practice of circulating money. Yeah. And some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about is going to be very powerful today because I will be coming down to this earthy plane and talk about what exactly we need to do in order to actually begin circulating, right? Because there are a lot of people who are stuck in their circumstance. There are a lot of people who are stuck in their familiar pattern of their identity. Unless we begin acting on it, we're not letting the universe know that we are stepping into the next identity. Yeah. And then people tend to think that, how can I do that if I don't have it in the outside? Right. Many people, there are only two places that makes us stuck, which is the places that I share. Oh, two people are requesting to join. I was busy talking. Is the outside circumstance and the past present pattern. Yeah. So, but then it's rather interesting, right? Because we all know this law of cause and effect. We all know the law of assumption. We all know the law of circulation. And then many of us, not after this training, used to, I'm just going to use the past tense, used to let the outside circumstance or the past present pattern get in the way, even though we understand and know the law of cause and effect, law of perpetual transmutation of energy, and law of assumption, right? So there's something that might be missing, which I'm going to be talking about. Tom said spending 80% of my working day interacting, expressing, and experiencing, attracting 50K, amazing, circulate with expansion. Yeah, that is the key. We want to circulate with expansion, not with contraction. Karen is traveling more, having lots of the art in shows and selling the work there. Amazing. Ronald, follow a spiritual course in Costa Rica. Let's schedule when you are going there, Ronald, on your calendar. Because when you have the actual date, it becomes more real, right? Dagmar is saying creating my own charity legacy. I mean, you can create that now, though, just so you know. Does that make sense? Those are things that we wanna begin actually executing, right? So let's say abundant life that you're envisioning is not in an observable world field just yet. But then, what are the things that I can do right now to begin putting things in place? Because we want to begin moving the energy towards that way, right? Instead of waiting to act on it until the resource is available. So one of the probably shift that we want to make is instead of looking for the resources, you want to be resourceful because you have the power to initiate the change. So we don't want to be in the waiting mode for the circumstance to change, hoping. Yeah, this is something that we were talking about in the Soulpreneur camp too. We want to eliminate the language "I am hoping," right? Because if you're hoping, you're not assuming that that is going to happen. So you can hope for somebody, means that, for instance, I can hope that you're having a good day because I'm not in charge of that creation, right? But in terms of what we're creating, we never want to hope, right? We want to eliminate completely. I'm hoping that this is going to happen next month in my life. Then you're saying that I am not expecting that to happen. Wait, then that's what's going to happen because now you activated the law of assumption based on your hoping, right? Hoping for something to happen is delegating your own power to something outside, and that is against embodying God. Then because you're the creator, you're creating that energy, and that's what you're going to manifest because you are so powerful. You can join my mentorship today, Judith. I love that answer. I'm gonna look for other answers who are saying the same thing. You can actually join today, just so you know. Jan, nothing will look different really. Okay. Home base. I love travel. I love building, making money, good friends. Okay, great. Robin. Oh, invest in yourself. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna read the rest out later, everybody, so I can respond. Thank you. And if anybody who watching replay, I want you to actually participate in this. I'm gonna talk about authenticity again. I talk about that on day one and day two, but I'm gonna touch upon authenticity a little bit differently. Yeah. I think the message has been clear that the more authentic you are, the more you are allowing your soul essence to shine through. And because that is the only version of you that you're here to express and experience, things will start circulating in a way that you desire because you're expressing the real true version of you. Neil talks about the grandest version of your greatest vision. Yeah. There's a different version of us, right? The version of us that wants to stay small, the version of us that fully connected to the vision, the desire. And because we are able to see the potentiality and possibility based on the desire to create the vision of the life that we want to be creating, the movement that we want to be creating, the influence and the impact that you want to share to the world. Once you have the desire, the greatest vision, we can begin tapping into and working on the grandest version of us. So the grandest version of us, which I call divine self, that is the foundation of Satori mind. It is a Christ consciousness, if you choose to use that language, is what we are here to demonstrate. And yesterday on the Inspire Action, I asked the level 2 income that you want to be circulating. Yeah, if you had a chance to take a look at the workbook, level 1 income is the minimum income that you can cover everything and then have a room to circulate. We're not going to be interested in the level 1 income, right? We're just going to lay it out. We want to start with the level 2 income. Level 2 income is the income that you feel so excited and energized and inspired, and you feel like you want to begin dancing, even though you might not identify yourself as a dancer. You find yourself moving the body because you're so lit up. And then level 3 income is, it feels scary, it feels out of place, but well, anything is possible. Can I dream of being there a little bit? What is that amount, right? The level 3 income version of you is the authentic self. Can you see that? Can you connect the idea of authenticity and the amount of money that you're circulating? Because money is a spiritual idea. We're a spiritual being. Abundance is our birthright, right? Being the authentic you is the authentic version of you that you are here to express and experience, to share your wisdom and gift to the world. So the amount of money that you will be circulating is a reflection of your expression, right? So I'm having this conversation so we can begin redefining what authenticity is, redefining what spirituality is. We want to include all of the things that allows us to integrate, because being in a survival mode all the time is not an experience and expression of the authentic version of you, right? And then what we want to begin understanding is, are we identifying the authentic self from the stories that we have lived, or can we tap into the true authenticity of who we are here to live? Who we are here to live is freedom. Who we are here to live is flow and expansion. There's no limitation. The mind is limited, the soul is not. So there's going to be contrast and resistance along the way. But the work that needs to be done is, okay, how can I expand the awareness of the mind more so I can bring the unlimited potentiality of the soul essence in the dimension of the identity and the mind, and the construction of the identity includes the action and what actually we're doing in this world. So having more money is not better than having less money. What we want to understand is, what is your desire? Yeah. You don't need to, and then people have different, preferences, right? Like for instance, I'm not too interested in purchasing like a luxurious clothes, but I live a luxurious life in terms of my body. Means that I take care of my body very well, spending money, including the food that I buy. I'm very selective. I don't buy anything, right? So my attention and the usage of the circulation is not too much in, I'm I'm not interested in collecting watches, for instance, right? There's people who are. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it's just not my own thing. I don't own any clock, watch or clock. I don't have any clock in my home. I don't have TV, right? But I'm not shy in investing money for my body, for my health. So does that make sense? So the reason I'm sharing this is because people have different desire. If somebody wants to be in a luxury place, that's what they desire. That's what they believe. Yeah. I do love staying in a good hotel. Does that make sense? So I think what the invitation here is that we don't want to let the idea and the concept of abundance getting distorted based on how others perceive what abundance is. We want to create our own model of what abundant life means for us, what circulation of money means for us, including the amount of money that you want to be earning circulating, right? And having more money, that doesn't mean that that person is better. It means that that person is desiring that kind of life, right? So the idea here is that how can we energize and enrich our own unique version of what abundant means for us, not getting caught up with what others are perceiving abundance, your own unique way of what abundance is for you, and examining our own belief. Does that make sense? The message that I'm sharing. And the reason that also I want to take this perspective is to make all of us aware that we might be actually getting caught up with what abundance is based on what you see on the social media, what you see on TV, what you see in the world, and what others are doing. It doesn't really matter, right? For some people, abundance might be to own a small cottage in the middle of forest, right? For others might be living in a mansion, right? And because we're practicing and exercising and living and coming from a creative plane, we're not gonna have any judgment or opinion about it if somebody is creating and demonstrating an abundant life based on their imagery when that is not incongruent with your version of abundance. So does that make sense? I want to paint that picture. And abundance, what's true for all of us is abundance has a strong correlation with freedom, right? What allows us to do freely without any hesitation, without any restriction, without any limitation. We don't want to waste anything, but I haven't bought into this idea of not interested in the material stuff because when somebody's in a spiritual side, there is a tendency that, oh, I don't really care about the material stuff, right? If that person doesn't care about the material stuff, that is fine. And you can love material stuff, right? It's not the material stuff or having a lot of money or a lot of things is the problem. The problem is if you are attached to it, right? The problem becomes a problem when you become identifying yourself with that having and doing. Because any of the external stuff that we have or whatever that we do not define who we truly are. So that's the integration of the identity, self, and the essence soul, where if you are, this is what happens to a lot of people who are accomplishing. They get blindsided and they get lost into the addiction of having more, doing more, and begin identifying themselves with those stuff. That's why we want to start from the inside and expand outside. We need both to be able to have a wholeness fulfillment inside and expansion creation outside. So if you felt a little not clicking fully when I said your authentic version of you is the one who is circulating the level 3 income, yeah. Because if you desire that, if you feel excited, if you feel out of place because the mind wants to make us small, but if you desire, it means that if the number came, it means that that potentiality is inside of you, right? And if that's the case, that is the grandest version that enables you to impact the world to create and fulfill your greatest vision. So how can we unfold that version of us? By shifting our identity, by working on changing our belief is what we're doing. And the reason that we focus on that identity piece is because everything happens based on the energetic resonance. So let's say if you have a strategy and it's something that you want to do, you can choose that. But unless the energetic underneath is being supported by the authentic version of you, it will not happen because that's what we are asking. Let's talk about some practical stuff. So we're living in an abundant universe. We agree on that. And there's an infinite supply. There's an infinite supply means that things has a possibility to increase and grow in an unlimited way. We're not living in this pie syndrome world, but we're living in a garden which circulate to expand to grow more of. That's why we have so many billionaires today. We didn't have that many 100 years ago. right? So the money is a reflection of the abundant mind and consciousness. And as we work on that, we will begin creating that opportunity in the outside. The law of relativity says that nothing is big or small, but only thinking make it so. This is the explanation of the law of relativity, but this statement comes from Shakespeare, right? So what that means is that nothing is expensive. It's only the thinking that make it so. So as we change the feeling and the internal consciousness, bless you, Lynn. The outside, somebody's talking about you. And so something in the outside will start shifting based on the feeling, right? So the first practical thing that we want to be implementing, Ronald, because he was looking forward to the practical thing, is to eliminate this internal narrative that something is expensive, right? Because does that make sense? We can talk about all of these, and when we see something and see, oh, that's expensive, right? It's expensive. Something is expensive based on our thinking, and we are contrasting with something else. That's how we want to exercise, right? So, I mean, one of the practices that I have done, that I have shared, is that I have developed a practice of removing 2 zeros from everything. So let's say if it's $1,000, I see that as a $10. Does that make sense? If it's $10,000, I see that as $100. So when you think of the $100 and $10,000, there's a different feeling and meaning and impact in your gut. Does that make sense? And the impact comes from the perception. And the perception comes from your belief. Because every experience that we have is a reflection of our perception. Every perception perspective that we take is an extension of our belief. Who we are being in this world, the sense of self, how you feel about you in this world. Yeah. And then the practice that we must do, everybody, is to begin practicing creating that from within, not creating that from without. So what I mean by that is only because you currently don't have enough fund, that is not going to let you create your mind. Because we are creators, so we are gifted with free will. We have an ability to navigate our attention to our vision. We have an ability to navigate our attention to the desire. We have an ability internally to shift your attention from the external circumstance, which is, by the way, is the historical document of your past thinking. Everything that is happening currently in your life is an accumulation of the past energetics inside of you, right? So then the reason that most people get stuck in the loop of, I'm going to use what Diane said. She said, the hamster wheel of the separation model. I really like that, right? People tend to get caught up into this hamster wheel of the separation model. And she was talking about the healthcare system because she has this like a holistic perspective, which is the same for Shana. But the separation model is really that we have believed that we're separate from God. When we believe that we're separate from God, you act on the competitive plane because you're not operating from the oneness, right? Then, when you believe that you're separate from God, you disconnect from the infinite supply. When you believe that you're separate from God, you begin letting the outside circumstance to dictate the creation of the self inside. So all the things that many people get stuck stem from the separation of God. And everybody, many people are living in the hamster wheel of the separation model. So because we are gifted with the free will creator to be able to shift your attention and to begin thinking from, feeling from, believing from the vision, instead of thinking and believing and feeling from the outside in or past present. That's what it means to truly be the creator of our own life and begin thinking and acting from the authentic version of you. So we can use that removing the zero stuff as a mind game. Everything is a mind game, everybody. And removing the reaction that something is expensive. Because when you think that something is expensive, that feeling is going to push money away from you. Yeah. So we must practice neutralizing and to not to let that affect our emotions and feelings, and to begin seeing yourself in that grandest version by holding the greatest vision. Wow. A lot of Neil's influence in my talk since we're connected. I want to talk about the University of Not Knowing. I love talking about this. There's a university called Not Knowing, right? So let's say that you have an amount that you're currently earning and circulating, right? And you have your level 2 income that you want to be circulating. Yeah. And there's a difference. The time that you spend circulating the current amount is equal to paying the tuition to the University of Not Knowing every single month. The amount of the difference between the level 2 and the current circulation of money. Does that make sense? Because if you, let's say if you start earning and circulating that amount now, that amount is coming in. If we do not step into the identity now and begin letting the existing circumstance or past pattern to drag your life, you're actually paying the tuition of the university of not being aware of stepping into that frequency every single month. That difference, it's an invisible tuition that we're actually paying. Does that make sense? So in order to collapse that time, which is gonna something that we're gonna be talking about on day 5, we want to prioritize this. People tell me they're busy. I don't know what they're busy with when the nurturing and the work of the inside is the most important thing to begin creating the life that they desire. So it is about priority, but diving into this and then play with having fun, but to commit to be serious about this is what I suggest people to do. So one of the practices, Ronald, is to remove 2-0. The second practice is to recognize the reaction that you think something is expensive, right? How can you begin positioning yourself differently internally for that to become lower and feel lighter? Yeah. The third practice comes from Myron Golden. I love Myron Golden. He teaches business from a biblical standpoint. He talks about there are 4 kinds of people in the world. And he said there are freepo people, cheapo people, feepo people, and prepo people. I'm just going to explain what that is. Yeah. Freepo people want free stuff all the time, right? So as we all know, we want to be able to circulate and move energy in order to expand that circulation, the earning. So if we're constantly looking for free stuff, I just have a difficult time understanding how that's going to translate into begin circulating more money. Does that make sense? So what that means is that if you want to expand the capacity of even love, health, and money, we must invest in circulating money. A cheapo people are those who want cheap stuff, right? The people who always looking for a discount, right? So I guess I'm talking about this to recognize, I'm not saying anybody here is star, but do you recognize that pattern? And then you can see the people around you, they're different type of people, right? People are those who are willing to pay to be able to create that receiving. People wants premium stuff. Know that in order to create something, you must invest in something that is impactful to be able to create that return, right? So we cannot say that I want to circulate more money and I don't want to pay anything. Does that make sense? The amount that you invest is going to come back, right? I'm going to give you my example. My graduate school was $70,000, 3 years. Yeah. 5, 6 years ago, I started this sort of online stuff gradually. And the first investment to become a consultant for Bob Proctor was $30,000. And then I invested in marketing, $10,000. Same company, another $8,000. 1 year mastermind, $20,000. And I left different group, $8,000. With Kathleen Cameron, $20,000. Last year, with Doug, $5,000. Justin Sander, $12,000. Last year, on my birthday, I joined $30,000 a year mastermind. Yeah. And let me share with you. In that process, I move energy because I knew that if I move energy, it's gonna come back to me, right? But the point is that it's not that it's not that I always had it. It's not that I always had the amount to invest, but I made a decision to do so, and the way came to me. Does that make sense? I borrow money. I had an angel investor. I had different people in banks that I borrow to accumulate because this is important for me to move forward, to expand. And I believed in the abundant universe and infinite supply. So whenever and then also, this is another thing that I'm noticing, that people who are on an abundant mindset are not afraid of borrowing temporarily because we're acting from the vision. We know where we're going. So we start thinking from the vision, feeling and believing from the vision. Does that make sense? And sometimes I hear, not sometimes, very often I hear people not wanting to borrow because they don't want to have the debt, right? That's thinking and acting from the current circumstance, right? And what we want to begin understanding is that if you are there, how would you be taking action, right? Because like I'm a big fan of Richard Branson, Virgin Group. He borrowed a lot of money to be able to start his business. Yeah. And I think when you begin really understanding that we are just portals that the energy flowing to and through us, and we don't own anything, but we're temporarily borrowing, the amount that we earn is also borrowing anyway. It's circulating to and through us temporarily, including our body, right? So we don't want to make borrowing money too serious or heavy. It's just a temporarily leverage that you're creating to begin fulfilling your vision. Yeah. I don't know too many people who accomplished that who didn't take those risks, right? Those people who take those risks know that the biggest risk is the life that you're not living, right? The biggest risk in life is the life that we're not creating because of whatever the mind that we're entertaining. So, and then people, because people have fear energy towards money, yeah, people start contracting. But what if money is love? What if money is something that can flow to and through you? What if we can interpret money a little bit differently? It's a means to expand, it's a means to begin demonstrating your authentic version of you. It's a beautiful thing. The first song that I was playing is called Beautiful Things, by the way. The second one is Viva la Vida. I think I'm on track today. So we want to form a practice of circulating money, means that, a lot of people talk about, donating and all that with an expansion, which we want to do. And let's say this is something that I come across often that I wanted to make sure that I communicate today, everybody. Now, everybody can understand this conversation, and from a spiritual perspective, it probably makes sense for all of us. But you might be having a but in your mind, right? But what if the circumstance does not allow me to do so? Is anybody having that but inside? So do we remember on day 1 or day 2, I talked about not giving attention to what's making you stuck? And you want to jump onto the creating the new idea, right? So let's say conditionally, capacity wise, there's not enough in the bank or whatever that area that you can access, right? You want to come from the new idea and begin entertaining that life that you're desiring, the version of you, the identity that you're operating, and then begin fantasizing it. And the reason that we want to do that is because when you enter into that energy, different intuitions or synchronicity, things that coinciding in the way will be shown, but you also want to navigate your attention to come up with possibilities. And then what we want to do also is to begin letting go of the idea that borrowing is not a good thing. It's a great thing because you're circulating money. And in having that moment of borrowing, whatever that is never gonna be negative or not good if you're operating from the vision because you know where you're going. Does that make sense? I just have a hard time understanding when people get stuck there. And then when somebody says, oh, I don't have a way to do, 100% of the time, the inability to access that is being created by the mind. Not that's how it is. There's all kinds of possibilities and all kinds of options. So when we stepping into the creative plane, instead of being in a competitive plane, you can begin moving energy and then people who can support you or anybody, any possibility. Maybe you land on some opportunity to be able to circulate that, right? And another piece of this is that you want to act on it fast. You want to begin acting on it fast. People tends to want to think about it when the past present patterns start kicking in. And then what happens is to repeat the same pattern again, right? So if there's something that you want to do and resonate with, and if that feels aligned with your vision of what you're creating, there's no moment of hesitation. You just go for it. Yeah. And let's say if you're doing something else and another opportunity appears, do both. That's what happened in me. I signed up for Justin Sanders and Doug appear in front of me. And I said, I'm doing both. Right? Because why not? Money is going to circulate and you're going to be producing. So, yeah. So we want to kind of shift the relationship with all of those, right? And then to operate from the knowing that if your path is creating the authentic version of you, it's going to work because that's what we are here to do. This is something that I'm going to talk about more on day 5, but when it comes to this kind of conversation, people start having this sort of paralysis in decision where they start thinking whether this is the good decision for them, right? Every decision that you make is the best decision if you believe so. But if you begin doubting that the other decision might have been better, which will never be able to figure out because you have decided to do one of the other, the decision that you made begins becoming less and less and less effective because you started to assume something different. Does that make sense? So I think the whole point is the whole conversation that we're having, everybody, is that we have an ability to own the power to create because we're so powerful. So abundant life is an extension of the abundant mind. And an abundant mind, the creation of the abundant mind is to begin practicing, operating, thinking and feeling and believing from the vision, not from the existing circumstance or the past present pattern. We want to first become aware of where we are operating from and begin exercising and practicing, shifting into begin operating from the vision. And then this is something that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow with interview with Rustin. It's interesting that Jessica and Rustin are accountability partner, and I end up asking them to do the interview. I think Jessica needs to remind Rustin to show up tomorrow. The action that we take needs to come from the vision. Yeah. And this might sound like it's a little different way of operating, but that is also the secret to collapse time. Before we finish, if you could take a moment to share from today, what spoke to you the most? And what would you like to apply today? You're welcome to join us today, Judith. So you can collapse time. Yeah, I'm available. If you could just anchor before we leave today, out of the sharing today, what would be the number one thing that resonated with you or contemplating or spoke to you the most? I like that, Lynn. Abundance is, I mean, I think you wrote this earlier. Abundance is living without limits, moving through life with ease and flow, and being in that, knowing that everything you desire is already done and already have. I think what we want to recognize, this is for all of us, is okay, what is the behavior that I'm executing when I'm anchoring the abundant mind? Because we can talk about it and act from a completely opposite place. Oh yeah, level 3 income is your authentic self. That makes sense though, right? If that's what you desire and what you're here to do and what you feel, it feels scary for the ego, right? So another practice, Ronald, that we could do is when the level 3 income becomes so natural, now you will start inviting. Yeah, neutralize your expensive stuff. There's nothing expensive. Because if we say something that is expensive, now first we're letting the outside situation to create the mind, and the things that we feel expensive will continue to stay expensive because that's how we're choosing to see so, right? So throughout the day and the week, everybody, we want to kind of notice the reaction to life and begin working on shifting. And how do we shift that? We shift practicing, thinking, feeling, and believing and acting from the end. Now, when the actual capacity or the means are not there physically, you might not be able to act from the exact place. Now, how would that work? You do something that is within that capacity. So you can at least begin moving and circulating. Everything is about identity, yes. Yeah, 3 feet from gold. Amazing. If you go to classroom in day 3, which is this one, inspire action. I'm just going to present the inspire action. So what are the 3 areas in your life you can think of that you might be operating from on a competitive plane? This is going to help us recognizing the unconscious limit that we are entertaining. How would you see and act when you look at them from the creative plane? Amazing. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the self-definition. Self-definition is an identity and the embodiment of what we're talking about. We're going to go a little bit deeper with what what I spoke today. And if anybody is wanting to collapse time, day 5 is a place that you can really get how to collapse time. Okay, that's it, everybody. Thank you, everybody. And engage in the group to keep giving. And I look forward to seeing everybody's sharing. See you tomorrow.